Today's reading is one that I came across on Facebook a year or two ago. There's no author associated to it. It's called Two Babies in the Womb. In a mother's womb were two babies. The first baby asked the other, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" The second baby replied, "Why, of course, there has to be something after delivery. Maybe we are here to prepare ourselves for what we will be later." "Nonsense," said the first. "There's no life after delivery. What would that life be?" "I don't know, but there will be more light than here. Maybe we will walk with our legs and eat from our mouths." The doubting baby laughed. "This is absurd. Walking is impossible, and eat with our mouths ridiculous. The umbilical cord supplies nutrition. Life after delivery is to be excluded. The umbilical cord is too short." Second baby held her ground. "I think there's something, and maybe it's different than it is here." The first baby replied, "No one has ever come back from there. Delivery is the end of life. And in the after delivery, it's nothing but darkness and anxiety, and it takes us nowhere." "Well, I don't know," said his twin, "but certainly we will see Mother, and she will take care of us." "Mother?" The first baby guffawed. "You believe in Mother? Where is she now?" The second baby calmly and patiently tried to explain. "She's all around us. It's in her that we live. Without her, there would not be this world." "Ha! I don't see her, so it's only logical that she doesn't exist." To which the other replied, "Sometimes, when you're in silence, you can hear her, you can perceive her. I believe there is a reality after delivery, and we are here to prepare ourselves for that reality when it comes." Good morning. I had saved this story for quite a while, looking for the correct homily to share it with you. But you're going to have to bear with me for a little bit because I'm not going to take it exactly in the direction that you would think. When I did some research on this story looking for an author, it seems that it was shared by Wayne Dyer in his book, Your Sacred Self, and he attributed it to a story told by Henry J.W. Nouwen. But I also found where it was attributed to Pablo Molinero, and his work seems to have been released more than 10 years before Nouwen's. So out of curiosity, I looked up the other versions. Pablo Molinero's version, The Boy and the Girl, is longer, darker, and more detailed. Boy argues against the existence of mother. Girl's convinced. She just can't seem to get her point across without him cutting her down and making fun of her. It's quite an interesting story until I got to the end. At the birth, which wasn't such a pleasant process, girl is born first and ended up in mother's arms, forgetting all the trauma of the birth. Boy, on the other hand, was so afraid, believing that there was nothing afterwards, that he struggled and struggled. He struggled so much that the umbilical cord ended up wrapping around his neck and he was stillborn. I was kind of traumatized by the ending of that story, so I certainly wasn't going to use it in my homily. Then I started thinking about it. I got a little bit of guidance. If we consider Molinero's darker ending, then this story becomes something different. Still one about faith and belief, yeah, but also one about creating our own reality. Tells us that if we let ourselves give into our darkness and our fears, that's what we'll end up manifesting in our lives. Maybe we need to look at this as a parable about ourselves. Maybe those two babies represent two sides of ourselves. Boy being our physical side, that reacts to the world instead of interacting, believing only in what he can see, giving no credence to what anyone else believes. And girl, being the spiritual side of us, side that feels and views the world more ethereally, understanding that some things can't quite be touched or quantified. One of the things that happens as we awaken, as we become enlightened, as we begin to recognize and step into our spiritual selves. Okay, or one of the things that should happen anyway, doesn't always happen, is that we learn to open ourselves up to the possibility that our own spiritual beliefs are not the only ones out there. We begin to understand that there are many schools of thought, and hopefully, we learn to expand our own ideas about spiritual truth as we listen, feel what other people believe, as we experience what other faith traditions and practices have to offer. But sometimes it seems almost as if we separate ourselves, much like the two babies in our story. Girl understands that there are many beliefs when it comes to religion, faith, or spirituality. We allow ourselves to be accepting, even welcoming of other religions, other belief systems, other people who follow them. But somehow we become more like boy when it comes to things in our physical world. Political beliefs, societal norms and expectations, those may be an entirely different thing. Seems like daily I'm viewing posts on social media where people are belittling or tearing apart someone else's opinion related to things happening in our physical world. Sharing memes that poke fun at the other side, those people who believe differently than they or their friends do. Where someone is saying, if you don't believe as I do, or if you support this, then unfriend me. Really? Is that how little we think of these friendships? Maybe it's just because they're Facebook friendships. So we can just casually say, I don't like you, and I don't want to know you anymore, just over a difference of opinion. A couple of months ago, when the racial tension had reached an apex here, I came across a video on social media. The video was posted by a woman of color. She was voicing her opinion on what was happening and explaining why she stood where she did, which apparently is not where one would have expected a woman of color to stand, I guess. So as watching the video, I was scrolling through some of the comments. I was shocked to see a comment posted by someone that I knew, a Facebook friend. This person is someone who played a pretty important role in my journey and someone who I have admired. The comment on the video was just one word, calling the woman a name. But to see the hatred and the mean-spiritedness in just one word from someone that I'd always viewed as enlightened was eye-opening to me. I've always known that my friend had strong emotions related to the subject, but to see the willingness to publicly cut someone else down for voicing their opinion truly astounded me. In my last homily, I talked about truth being relative to our perspective. Remember that? What I wrote as a 6, you might see as a 9 if you're standing in front of me. So why are so many open like girl when it comes to allowing people to express their spirituality as they see fit? Yet when it comes to things in our physical world, many people become boy, see a difference in opinion as something to be torn down and trampled on. You can be my friend if you're Catholic, Christian, Jewish, Islamic, Hindu, Wiccan, atheist. But if you're a Republican, heck no, you better unfriend me now. We don't know why people believe the way they do. We can't understand where everyone is coming from. And you know what? That's okay. Whether it's faith, politics, or the way that someone makes their bed. Ooh, I have an even better one. How do you hang your toilet paper? Because just for the record, I'm in the minority, and I like mine with the paper rolling from underneath. But don't tell anyone, because I don't want to lose any Facebook friends. Seriously, though, everyone's take is theirs. It doesn't have to be ours. So you can hang your toilet paper any way you want. That's what makes this journey so interesting, isn't it? Not particularly how you hang your toilet paper, but having differing beliefs and opinions. If everyone felt and believed and saw things exactly the same way that we do, what fun would that be? And why should things in the physical world be different than things that we view as spiritual? Lately, when I ask for guidance on just about anything, how to approach an issue related to my job, how to deal with a financial problem, or how to understand something that I've been struggling with spiritually, the answer that I receive is be spirit. Spirit's way of telling me to approach things from the perspective of a divine spiritual being. Many people that I know have been receiving similar messages recently. In one of our development circles this week, someone mentioned that they'd received the message that everyone, no matter how negative or polarizing we may see them, everyone has a mother, whether they're here with us or they're in spirit. Everyone is someone's son or daughter, someone's sister or brother, someone's husband or wife. And do you know what it feels like to know that your loved one has negative thoughts and opinions thrown at them? When I was young, I remember my parents took my younger brother and I to a playground. I couldn't have been more than 10 or 11. My parents were playing with my little brother, and I had walked away from them and towards these two older boys. They hadn't really noticed me. I was kind of standing there smiling at them, deciding whether I should strike up a conversation, when I heard one say to the other, "Look at that fat guy over there trying to swing." And they started laughing. I turned in the direction they were looking towards, and the smile froze on my face. I saw my dad sitting on a swing in the distance, and I realized that they were talking about him. I remember that feeling so well. Well, I had no idea how to express it. Even now, I'm really not sure. I remember it wasn't anger. I think it was more like dread and sorrow. These boys were making fun of someone that I loved and adored. I stood there reeling at the expanse of the waves of pain that had hit me. Just a minute before that, I'd been happy and joyful, and out of nowhere, my joy had been crushed. The boys had walked away from me to continue playing. I don't know if they even realized that I'd been standing there. I knew that I couldn't repeat the story to my parents. I didn't want them to feel the same pain that I did. So I held it, and I held it for the rest of my life. Matter of fact, I think that this is probably the first time that I've told anyone this story. I didn't know those boys, and I wouldn't know them again if I saw them. Obviously, it was 40 years ago, and I'm sure they have no memory of that day. It was something just matter of fact said for entertainment. And yet, those two children, by expressing something negative, managed to attach something to me that stayed with me for 40 years and became part of who I am. That, my friends, is the power we all have. The power that negativity can have, even when we don't necessarily intend it to do harm. Things seem to have just gone crazy around us. Global pandemic, natural disasters, racial tension, and political tension. Is it possible that we as a global family are somehow contributing to this craziness when we express ourselves negatively? two strangers could impact me so extensively by uttering something negative when they didn't even know that they were being overheard? And what's the impact when we're putting negativity out there where everyone can see it and actually hoping that they will? As metaphysicians, we understand the power of energy and intention. But do we understand that this power extends to all aspects of our lives? Now is the time for us to realize how powerful we all are. As individuals and as a collective, we have the ability to throw darkness or throw light. We all know there are people out there that we just can't stomach, and there are things happening or being exposed that are just immoral. Seems to me almost as if it's part of the period that we're in. Infections within society's underbelly are being brought to a head like a cyst, waiting to be lanced, drained, and healed. And we're certainly not saying that anyone should stand by and let bad things happen without speaking up. About the time that I noticed the comment my friend made on that video, I noticed a comment somewhere else where someone was making a point about history proving that no significant change has ever happened without violence and bloodshed and nastiness. So I had to stop and think about that one. The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the World Wars, all violence for a purpose, I guess. But the bloodshed, the trauma of those events, they stuck with us. They stayed in our collective consciousness. Is that what's needed for positive change? On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat to a white person. On December 5th of that same year, 4 days later, the Montgomery bus boycott began. It was a civil rights protest during which African Americans refused to ride city buses in Montgomery, Alabama, to protest segregated seating. And it lasted over a year until December 20th, 1956. The U.S. Supreme Court ultimately ordered Montgomery to integrate its bus system. And one of the leaders of the boycott, a young pastor named Martin Luther King Jr., emerged as a prominent leader of the American civil rights movement. It was a bus boycott. There are many other examples of peaceful protests that led to important changes. Suffrage parade, 1913, pivotal to the passing of the 19th Amendment 7 years later, granting American women the right to vote. A peaceful parade down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. There's another one I like. Tree sitters of Peoria, New Zealand. They built and lived in tree houses in the Peoria forest to stop its deforestation. And it resulted in the government permanently stopping the logging operations and making the forest a national park. They built tree houses and lived in them. Now, I don't pretend to be an expert on these things, so I couldn't tell you if peaceful protests are always the most efficient way to inspire needed change. But here is what I can tell you. No doubt, more hate does not cure hate. More anger doesn't cure anger. We can't end something that we see as wrong by throwing more of the same at it. It's just not how it works. By throwing more hate at hatred, we're feeding it, giving it power, letting it grow. Throwing more anger at anger only accentuates it. Lets it blossom like a black flower. Our political leaders, our religious leaders, leaders of big business, they're all human beings just like you and I. And if we throw negativity and darkness at them, what do we think's going to happen? They're suddenly going to become beacons of light, change their way of thinking, suddenly see the error of their ways? Nah, it's not how natural law works. So here's what I'm asking. Let's look for a way to bring our two sides together. Rather than us acting as if the spiritual world and the physical world are two different places and hold two different versions of us, let's try to bring those two babies together. Make boy and girl one. Instead of contributing to the negative energy that seems to be surrounding us constantly these days, let's hold the light and the space for positive energy to bloom. Edgar Cayce said in one of his readings, "The sowing of the seed of spirit bringeth peace. The sowing of the seed of strife bringeth contention." So let's be spirit. Let's sow that seed, regardless of what aspect of our lives we're in. When you see, hear, or read something that upsets you and you want to reply, you want to scream your views to the world, take a minute. Heck, take 30 seconds even. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Remember that the other person, the one whose viewpoint upset you or got you angry, they're just human too. And they have loved ones just like you and I. The case of my Facebook friend and that comment on the video, one moment had just been taken to understand how difficult that video must have been for that woman to make. How scary putting yourself out there with an opinion that differs from what you know people expect. Maybe then, if that one moment had been taken, at least one less nasty comment might have been posted. And who knows what far reaching implications one less negative comment might have. Maybe that woman had a daughter who, like the young me, was greatly impacted by that one thoughtless, nasty word. And as we approach the election in this country, instead of feeding the negative energy, instead of passing around ridiculing memes and nasty comments and rotten words, let's try to use prayer to hold the light. No matter what happens in November, let's pray that our leaders find their way. Let's pray that they find the strength to do what needs to be done for the good of all, not just for the good of the few. Let's surround them, regardless of who they are and regardless of how we view them, with the light of our collective love instead of the darkness of our anger, fear, and disappointment. Maybe if one by one we can find a way to hold the light within our own individual universes, more and more people out there will follow suit. And that future that we manifest will result in one happy, healthy soul being born into this new world, bringing the best of boy and girl into one. Thank you.